The Biden White House is facing criticism for downplaying the alarming increase of anti-Semitism in America. Sikh people have been tearing down Israeli hostage posters, and Jewish students say they're too afraid to go to class as pro-Hamas protesters rage on college campuses. Karine Jean-Pierre got asked about the anti-Israel bias, and her answer was a complete disgrace.
What is his level of concern right now about the potential rise of anti-Semitism in light of everything that's going on in Israel?
So a couple of things. We have not seen any credible threats. I know there's been always questions about credible threats, and so just want to make sure that that's out there. But look, Muslim and those perceived to be Muslim have endured a disproportionate number of hate-fueled attacks.
Karine's response was so bad that one Democrat is blasting her for providing a weak answer on anti-Semitism.
I understand there's a press briefing book. I understand there's lots of topics. I understand you got to look at it. But when someone asks a simple question of, is the White House concerned about the rise of anti-Semitism? It's a simple yes answer. By the way, I know the president is concerned. That's why there's an ambassador to anti-Semitism. That's why there's a task force to anti-Semitism.
Karine now says that she misheard the question, and she tried to clean up her mess at today's briefing.
I understand how important moral clarity is, especially at this time. So when Jews are targeted because of their beliefs or their identity, when Israel is singled out because of anti-Jewish hatred, that is anti-Semitism.
You know, it's very interesting, Dana, that, number one, she had to look at her briefing book. And number two, she said she misheard the question in the Politico article that she was quoted in 24 hours later.
Right.
But she seemed to hear everything else that day.
It's a strange thing. I listened to it again. I can imagine that she did mishear the question. But the other thing I wonder is, what about the reporters in the briefing room who listened to her answer and let it go? And not say, wait, did you really just say what you said? Then the White House lets it sit out there for 24 hours.
Yep.
Sort of like when Hamas says Israel killed 500 people at the hospital. And that's the headline that they run with. Well, now the problem for the White House is that they're constantly doing mixed messages. Jews here in America, 2% of the population, 51% of the U.S. recorded hate crimes. Okay, so that's just a fact.
Right.
And I don't think that the president would need you to actually look at your book for that. And I understand it's a tough job and they're working a lot of hours. I get that. And maybe you're prepared for something that you didn't get. But this is the other thing I would say. Your audience is on many different levels. It's not just the people in the briefing room or people who are talking heads on cable TV, because who cares about us? I do remember one thing in particular, except for I know yesterday was an important day.
Don't be hasty, right?
Yeah, on the heels of National Respect Your TV Personality Day, Dana.
It's true. But I would just give you one anecdote. So I was thinking back to when I was press secretary, there wasn't social media, okay, that came right, like kind of in the year after. I was never more recognized than I was when we traveled to Israel and South Korea. Why? Because people who rely on the United States for moral clarity, for the leadership, they will hang on your every word if they are in trouble. And that's why it's so important to get it right.
You know, Piers, what Dana says is accurate, that Jews are victims of 51% of the hate crimes in this country. Muslims are victims of about 10% of the hate crimes. But that doesn't even reflect what's going on in Europe. And it certainly doesn't reflect the whole topic that she's talking about, where Jews were being murdered.
Well, she talked about moral clarity. I'd like some mental clarity, just a mental thought process, which when somebody asks you a very simple, clear question to comment about rising anti-Semitism, which is very palpable around the world right now and shocking, your natural reaction is not to immediately pivot to something completely different in the way that she did and talk about another group of people. And so my message to Karine Jean-Pierre is, let's not have any more failings of moral clarity. Listen to the questions that you're being asked, because the entire world, as you said, Dana, they're watching that podium for not just clarity, but a position which makes people on the receiving end of this disgusting abuse and threats and everything that's coming with it, that makes them realize we are watching and we are taking this seriously. I thought what happened was a complete disgrace, honestly.
Jesse, a growing number of American Jews are taking courses on firearm safety, going to shooting ranges around the country as they fear for their safety.
I think every American should do that. Hispanic, black, Jewish, whoever, go get trained up.
Yep.
I certainly have been. I love how the next day she comes out and says, want to clear up one thing? I love the Jews. Does she turn to the wrong page in the binder? She didn't hear the question, Judge. So she has a real problem. The Democrats have a problem with radical Palestinian activists in their party and a Jewish issue. For some reason, people think just because Hamas or the Palestinians are the underdogs, that you have to root for the underdogs. You don't have to root for the underdogs. The underdogs can be vicious, nasty killers. Doesn't mean you actually have to side with them. So she's in trouble. And I think now everybody really realizes where she's coming from instinctually on a lot of issues.
Definitely. Wrap it up, Greg.
You know what's interesting about that statistic and the statistics you hear about hate crimes? Jews are victims of 51% of the hate crimes. They never mention who the victimizers are. Why is that? Isn't that interesting? Doesn't it make you wonder why they don't mention that? Why they don't mention who the suspect is in certain crimes until it falls out of the news cycle? I think she heard what she wanted to hear. She stopped listening in the middle of that sentence and heard Islamophobia instead of anti-Semitism. And as a product of identity politics, she conflated groups with individuals so that hatred for Hamas becomes Islamophobia, and then a one-off racist act then becomes the guilt of an entire population. That's how it works. She's a mouthpiece for the administration that sees us as always the problem. Remember in that speech, and I'm paraphrasing what Joe Biden said, but he said that this kind of problem exists right here in America. He said it in not those words, but you get the meaning. You get the meaning. I just want to read something. I read a Reuters piece today, right before the show, and you wonder how this political hysteria against Jews is happening. It's happening because how the media frames the story. So Reuters will say, and I'm going to quote them, Hamas assault on Israel left 1,400 dead. The next sentence, Israel airstrikes killed more than 5,000 Palestinians. There are three things wrong with those two sentences. One, left versus killed. Hamas left, Israel killed. Two, putting the numbers side by side as if you're only supposed to compare a single variable. No good, no evil, just the single variable. You got to learn this stuff when you're reading the news. And finally, they got their numbers from a Gaza official from that second statement. So no wonder you're seeing thousands and thousands of students being brainwashed, being part of a political hysteria, because this is how this stuff is filtered and framed.